right, everybody. Welcome to NorCal Sports Network. And we are here, as you can see, with the great one, Shawn Estes, current NBC Sports Bay Area analyst for the Giants and former Giants pitcher. Welcome, Shawn.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Good to be here.
Great to have you on here. You know, we got a few things in common. One is we were both born in California. I know you were born in San Bernardino. I lived in San Bernardino County for many years after growing up in the Bay Area. And then we now both live in Arizona. But the similarities stop there. You're a much better looking guy than I am, and a much better ball player than I ever was. So
don't sell yourself short, Dan. You're a good looking guy yourself. Come on now.
All right. Well, thanks. Appreciate that, Shawn. Well, hey, for you guys that don't know in the chat, Shawn was drafted by the Seattle Mariners and then came over to the Giants in the big trade that sent the now infamous Solomon Torres to the Mariners. Solomon Torres, if you guys remember, pitched in game 162 when the Giants were tied in 1993 with the Atlanta Braves. The Braves won the last game of the season. Giants needed to win to have a one-game playoff with Atlanta, and Solomon Torres pitched that final game and got rocked. It was like 10 runs. It was like 10-0 final, but it was anticlimactic game. You know, we were all pumped up, ready to go. We're going to win the division. We're going to win the division, Giants had won in 87, the team you played for. Or no, I mean 97. You played 97 winner, but 87 they won. 89 they went to the World Series, and then it wasn't until 1997 would they make it back to the playoffs. So that was you were instrumental in that season, that 97. And then what was it? Was that the year you went 19-5, or was that?
Yeah, that was the year.
Yeah, 19-5. Made the All-Star team, your one All-Star appearance that you had in your career, 19-5. What was that like for you in that year going 19-5? What was working for you that year? That just everything seemed to go right. It seemed like.
Well, that's it. You nailed it. Everything seemed to go right that year. If I pitched well, the bullpen came in and shut the door. And, we talk a lot about wins and losses and the relevance of those these days. They don't put they don't care as much about wins and losses anymore, it seems like, because pitchers aren't going as deep into games because there's more of an emphasis on using the bullpen. So, but, I know there's still some old school thinkers out there, especially that pitch in the big leagues right now, that wins and losses is a big deal because you can pitch deep enough into games, you can factor in a lot of those decisions. And that's the badge of honor for pitchers, is to throw 200 innings every year. And if you can do that in 32, 33 starts, that means you're going pretty deep into games, at least 6 innings a start. So on average. So, I felt that, the 19 wins was a pretty big deal, but it takes solid bullpen, work. It takes, some run support. So I had all that year, and fortunately it added up to wins and very few losses. But it was just one of those years where I came in. So I got called up at the All-Star break in '96, and that was a team that almost lost 100 games.
Right.
And a lot of injuries on that team, and we ended up pretty much with our AAA team by the end of that season in 1996. If you remember, it was pretty much the Phoenix Firebirds.
Right.
Matt Williams got hurt. Robbie Thompson got hurt. It's just all the veteran guys seemed to get hurt that year. And so it ended up being a lot of the Phoenix Firebirds. So we weren't that good that year. Like I said, the expectations were very low in the offseason in 1996. And Brian Sabian went out and he probably made the toughest trade he's ever had to make, and that was trading Matt Williams away. And we got Jeff Kent. We got Julian Tavares, and we got Jose Vizcaino, who all were a big part of that
Yeah.
97 team. And obviously Jeff Kent went on to win an MVP with the Giants and was a fixture in the middle of that lineup for a long time. So I think that trade worked out for both guys, for both teams. But
yeah, Matt went on to play in the World Series with Cleveland.
Yeah. But it was just one of those years where the expectations were low. I can remember a lot of the media outlets going into spring training in 97 picked us to finish 4th in the division that year. Obviously coming off of a bad year, but just a lot of still question marks. But we had JT Snow that year. We got in a trade. We had Darryl Hamilton. We got in a trade. We had Kirk Reeder, who had gotten the year before in a trade in the rotation. So it just I'll tell you what, man. Everything kind of, you talk about momentum and you talk about just coming together as a team and having chemistry. That was the team. Everybody just started to believe. Started in spring training because Dusty Baker put an emphasis that spring. I can remember this like it was yesterday, coming into camp that year. And typically spring training is a place you come, don't care really about wins and losses. You're just trying to get ready for the season. But he said, you know what? We have a bunch of new faces in here. We came off a really bad year. We want to set a tone early in camp, and we want to develop a winning culture here. So I want to win in the spring. So I want to go out there and win as many games as possible. And I know a little bit that's out of our control because you're playing some young guys. But he said, I want the team that I'm going to finish spring training with. It's going to be the guys being open. I want them to go out there and play hard this spring, and I want to try and win games. And we had a great spring. We won a bunch of games, and we carried that right into the season and ended up becoming a playoff team that year. And I was just fortunate to be a big part of that.
Well, that's amazing because you played for Dusty. You started your career with Dusty, and then after you left the Giants, you went to the Mets, and then you had a year in Cincinnati, and then the Cubs, Colorado, Arizona, San Diego. In fact, you even had a shot at the Dodgers. You were going for the full National League West circuit. You even got the old Cincinnati National League West team in there. You just needed to get Atlanta and Houston. You would have had but
I would have kept out. Yeah. Well, yeah. You mentioned 1993. Those were all the NL West teams back then.
Yeah.
Giants had to win 104 to get in. That doesn't happen anymore.
No. What was it like playing for Dusty? I mean, you just kind of gave us a little feel for his passion and him wanting to win and go for it. What was it like? You played for several managers. What was Dusty like, and what was some of your other manager experiences like as a player?
Yeah, well, he managed me for 7 out of my 12 years. So he's 6 with the Giants and then 1 with the Cubs.
That's right.
So I had him for the majority of my career, and he was great to play for. I mean, I think that's pretty much the consensus. you know, for all the players that played with him. He was a great manager of people. It didn't matter, who you were, where you came from, how you were raised. He knew. He was just really good with people, and he knew how to get the most out of each one of us. And he was respected first and foremost, based on the person that he is and was, and his credentials that he had coming into it, just as a great player, a great coach, and then a great manager. But he commanded respect, but he was a fun guy to be around. He, like you said, he had a lot of passion. It was almost like you have 26 man out there when you went out to play. And he was another player on the bench, and he happened to be your manager. He came out with the toothpick and the sunglasses and the wristbands and sometimes batting gloves when it was cold. I mean, it was almost like he wanted to grab a bat and go hit. And, you knew he had your back. So, that goes a long way. Regardless of, you talk about managers that are great field managers that know how all the, right buttons to push, how to have the right guys in the right places. Talk a lot about Bruce Bochy and his managing of a bullpen. That's great, but ultimately what it really boils down to is how hard that your guys play for you, how hard they go out there and they play for their team, their organization, their city. And I think a manager, as being a leader of that club, has a lot to do with that and how you go out there and conduct your business. and he'd hold you accountable too. It wasn't always fun and games either. We got into it a couple times, but he respected the players. He understood how hard of a game it was, but he also knew, when to patch it, when to smack you on the butt, or when to rub your back. So
that's great.
He was really good that way. So, but more than anything, he was just fun to be around. He had an infectious personality. He had a great laugh. He had great stories. He could relate to, like I said, all walks of life, and he had more friends in every city we went to. He had friends and people.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple years ago down in San Diego, I was at the winter meetings, and he was walking around the lobby, and all these people were following him. I spoke with him, and he was very gracious to take a photo, and he's just a really good guy. And that was they just won the World Series at Houston. So he was coming off.
Yeah, and I was happy for him because that's as much as he wouldn't admit it, that definitely was the monkey on the back,
right,
of not winning the big game. Obviously coming 0-2, almost doing it. 0-3 with the Cubs,
right.
Game 6, and then
Steve Bartman.
Yeah, and I was on that team too. So, he came close so many times, and he took every team that he managed to the playoffs, and it's just a matter of winning the big one. And he finally did with an organization in the Astros that looked like that they could unravel after the cheating scandal in 2019, right. And I think it was 19, but whatever. He came in and had a pretty difficult situation to deal with, and I think they understood that there was really only one guy that was going to be able to navigate that year. And he not only did he do that the first year, and he took him to the playoffs, maybe the World Series. I don't remember, but then he ended up winning one with them. So,
it was awesome. But
Cliff Martinez for sure.
Yeah, we got a comment in here. Cliff Martinez, who's one of our longtime listeners and followers, he says, "Welcome to the show, Shawn. Childhood favorite at the Stick. Thank you for signing my '97 Giants official magazine, A Call to Arms, as a kid." That's pretty cool.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah, I think. Well, I had I don't know what. I have a Giants magazine up here right now on my wall, and it's called Rising Sun. It's got a picture of me holding the ball in front of my face right here. It's a pretty cool shot. I kept the cover of, and then I had a frame. Yeah. It sounds to me like that's a different Giants magazine. That might be like the. I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah. I was pretty good about signing autographs. I never had a problem doing that. I always felt like that. I got snubbed when I was a kid at Candlestick. It wasn't by any Giants players. It was actually when the Mets were in town. It was my first Giant game I ever went to. I want to say I was like 12 or 13 years old, and Darryl Strawberry was at the height of his career, and with the Mets, and he snubbed me. I thought he was coming to sign my ball, and he didn't. Blew me off. So I always said, you know what? If I ever make it to the big leagues, and that was always my dream, is to do that. I'm never gonna blow anybody off for an autograph.
Yeah.
I'll always take the time to do that because it really bothered me.
Right.
I didn't want anybody else to have that same feeling.
Now, as a ball player, you were traded twice, at least 2 or 3 times?
I was traded from the Giants to the Mets, and then that year I was traded from the Mets to the Reds. I only played a month and a half with the Reds that year.
What's it like to get traded in either the off season or in during the season? How does that feel emotionally with your family, all that?
Yeah, 2 very different trades as far as how I felt about them. The first one was the Giants. It was a gut punch because, that's the team that I grew up rooting for. I got traded to the minor leagues too. That was a whole different animal altogether. But as a big leaguer, and I laid some roots down in San Francisco. I just loved playing there. The new ballpark was only 2 years old. I had 2 years in it, and I love that ballpark, still do. And I have family that's all in the around the Bay Area. I grew up in Nevada. I had family in Northern Nevada or Northern California, and so it was just, that's where I wanted to play my whole career. Like there was no even thought that I was going to go someplace different. And I had a rough end of the 2001 season, and Jason Schmidt came in a trade and dominated that year. And I think it was just Sapien had to make a decision on who he wanted to sign because I was arbitration eligible. I was going to make some money that year, and they decided to go with Schmidt. And it was a really, really tough call to hear. Matter of fact, I was going to a 49er game that day, and it was a Sunday in the off season. I was going to watch the Niners, and I ended up becoming a big Niner fan while I played there.
Oh yeah.
There were good teams back in the mid 90s. So went to a bunch of games in the off season. So I was going to the game, and I felt like I was in like a fog the whole day. It just didn't seem real because here I am, like I'm a Giant, and all of a sudden I'm going to a Niner game, and probably got tickets, somehow through the Giants, and I'm going to the game, and the whole game I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, this stinks. Like, this isn't going to feel the same. Even if I come back and watch a 49er game, it's not going to be, you just feel that bond with other sports teams in your city. And it just wasn't going to have that anymore. One, and two, just, it was hard. It was a really, really tough time for me. So that was something that I didn't want. Right. So I just there's nothing you can do about it at that point. It's just, so you got to move on. And I got ready to go play in New York, and it was a pretty good team on paper that year, although everybody pretty much underperformed to a man, and we had a terrible season. And so when I got traded during that season, we were in the midst of a 13-game losing streak in New York. And if you've ever been in New York during a losing streak, how about a 3-game losing streak's no fun to come to the ballpark. Can you imagine 13? I mean, the team's getting booed when they were getting announced.
Yeah, they're rough back there. I lived in Connecticut for 6-7 years and followed the East Coast teams when I was back there. And and then listening to Mad Dog Russo every day go off,
But he's a Giant fan too.
Yeah, he's a huge Giants fan. Yeah, but
he's ultra critical when they're not good.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was a tough time to be a Met, and so when I got traded from the Mets to the Reds, it was a little bit of a shock at first because it came after the trade deadline. But as soon as I understood, like, man, now I got an opportunity to go to the playoffs because the Reds were in the hunt, and then we weren't. But so it was two different mindsets completely in those two trades. One was just really bummed out and sad, and the other one was excited about going and having a chance to go to the playoffs again.
Yeah. Now we got some longtime fans in here, and Aaron, his real name's not last name's not Lost, but we nicknamed him. He nicknamed him that because in our fantasy league we were playing. I think one of us said, you lost or something like that. So anyway, Aaron says, thanks for coming on, Shawn. Did you eat your Wheaties the morning of May 24th, 2000? Walk us through that game if you could, please.
Yeah, well, not quite eat my Wheaties, but what's funny about that game, I mean, I don't tell many people this because it's kind of hokey in a way, but I used to go see this guy in Chinatown that season. And he was like a stretch guy, deep tissue massage. He'd do acupuncture. He was just, I think he considered himself a shaman. And he had this little upstairs studio in Chinatown. I lived in North Beach at the time, so it was really close to where I lived. And I typically wouldn't see him on game days. I'd see him in between starts. And he really helped me just physically that year, recover and helped me with my mind and just kind of be, it was really good for both physical and mental. And that day I saw him on the day of the game, and I usually didn't do that because it can be exhausting, when I get done. He was like a deep tissue massage, but also like a tough, hard stretch. You get a hard stretch. I mean, like, not like your typical like feel good stretch. Like this, you come out of there like actually was sore than when you went.
Yeah, it hurts.
Ultimately, it would benefit you. And so I said, just take it easy today because I'm pitching. And I left him tickets for that game that night. Anyway, I went in and I just felt different that day. I don't know what it was. I came to the yard that day. I felt calm. I just felt I just felt at peace, and I felt like that something good was going to happen. I don't know. Sometimes you come to the yard that day and you don't feel your best, or something bothering you, or mentally, or you didn't get sleep that night, so you're a little tired. But I felt like $1,000,000 that day. So in essence, I kind of did eat my Wheaties, but my Wheaties was my guy. Holy was his name, and so yeah, and it just was. It turned out to be just probably maybe not the best game I ever pitched, but definitely the best complete game that I ever pitched because of what I did offensively as well.
Yeah, that was the Grand Slam day, right? That was the game.
Yeah,
you hit the Grand Slam. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
hit a grand slam, but then I came up again with bases loaded
that's
later
right.
on in the game, and I hit one foul. It wouldn't have gone out, but I think everybody thought it was going to be another home run off the bat, and everybody went bananas. And it ended up being foul, but I had to settle for a single.
Yeah.
So I ended up with 5 RBI that game.
That's awesome, though. That's awesome. Now,
18-0.
Yeah. Now we talked a little bit before the show about, and one of our listeners brought up the same question we were kind of talking about. He says, Shawn, can you please explain the throwing behind Roger Clemens situation and why he deserved it? Because we all know he deserved it for the way he treated Piazza. That was, yeah, you can explain the whole situation because it started in the 2000 season, I think.
Yeah.
Between Piazza and Clemens.
I'll try to keep it, shorter than it really is because it's a pretty long story. But that happened in 2000. Clemens gets hit Piazza gets hit in the face or the head by a Clemens pitch, knocks him silly. He has to come out of the game. Piazza thinks it's on purpose, and it probably was, because Piazza had owned Clemens and hit some home runs off of him. And Clemens was, one of those guys that tried to intimidate. So he tried to go up and in on Piazza and ended up hitting him in the head. And Piazza knew it. And Clemens actually tried to call over to the clubhouse after the game and apologize. And Piazza wanted nothing of it. So it was not water under the bridge at that point. It definitely, there was some serious animosity that Piazza had toward Clemens. So, just so be it. They play each other in the World Series, and Clemens throws a pitch inside on Piazza, and Piazza swings. And the bat head goes flying. It comes back to Clemens. Piazza doesn't know where the ball is. He's looking around. He's starting to run down to first. Clemens picks up the bat and chucks it toward Piazza. Bench is clear. People say that Clemens was trying to throw the bat at Piazza. Whatever happened there, it happened, but it really wasn't resolved. Like the retaliation toward Clemens wasn't resolved. So 2001 rolls around. Clemens is scheduled to pitch at Shea. He comes up, says he has an injury. So, and if you remember, obviously you can't hit as a pitcher unless you play if you're in the National League, unless you play in the American League, if you play in a National League ballpark.
Right.
So Clemens knew that if he had pitched in Yankee Stadium, he was safe. But if he had to pitch at Shea, he was going to have to hit. So everybody blew that out of the proportion, I think. I truly believe he did have an injury. And he ended up not pitching at Shea in 2001. Well, 2002 comes around, and he's scheduled to pitch at Shea, and he's healthy this time. So, lucky me, I get to pitch that game. And I say that tongue in cheek because it was an absolute circus leading up to that start. And what I mean by that is that I wasn't part of that 2000 team, so I didn't have that same type of vitriol
emotions
or emotions toward Clemens. It was just going to be another game for me, and I was facing the Yankees, who I think people remember back in 2000 they were the best team in baseball, and they won a World Series in '99, and so I felt like that it was going to be a great opportunity. It was a nationally televised game, everybody'd be watching, Yankees, Mets, and I had to pitch well. I just cared about pitching well against the Yankees at home. So my first question after I finished the start before that, I believe it was against the White Sox. It wasn't about my game against the White Sox. It was about my next start, against the Yankees. And who's going to be on the mound? Roger Clemens. And I was just like, oh, no, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't even really, now that you bring it up, yeah, I do remember the Piazza Clemens thing. I go, I go, yeah, I don't really know because I haven't heard anything about it in the clubhouse yet. Like it hadn't even been talked about. But I had to talk about it every day with the media until the day that I pitched. And guys on the team were coming up to me, Mo Vaughn, Robbie Alomar Jr., they were all coming up to me saying, dude, just go pitch your game. Like, don't worry about all the other stuff. You know, you gotta go out there and pitch well against the Yankees. And unless Piazza comes up to you or Bobby Valentine, our manager at the time, comes up to you and says, you know, hey, this is what we're gonna do, and I'd like you to, you know, I'd like to put this to rest, and I want you to hit Clemens. They said, you know, just go out there and pitch your game. So that was my mindset. I'm like, that's fine, that's great. And then right before I went out to warm up, on the day that I pitched, I get Bobby Valentine calls me into his office, and him and Piaza are sitting there in his office, and
This is great.
and I'm like, you guys are gonna really wait till right now to bring this up? I mean, that's what I'm thinking in my mind. Like, I'm trying to go out and pitch. Like I'm trying to gear up, get mentally focused to pitch against the Yankees, and they're gonna do this right before I go out. So that kind of ticked me off, right? Because I'm like, you had 4 days to talk about this. And maybe they just didn't want me to think about it leading up to it, but I would have much rather preferred that. So the game comes along. Piazza, you know, I'm in Bobby Valentine's office, and Piazza says, okay, this is the sign we're going to use if an opportunity comes up to drill Clemens. So I'm like, all right. So first time Clemens comes up, I think there's 1 out, maybe 2 outs, maybe the 3rd inning. I can't remember what it was. And I get the sign. Can't remember what it was, what the sign was, but I'm like, all right. And you could tell there was a buzz in the stadium when he came up. Like everybody in the ballpark knew what was at stake. So I kind of felt the pressure at that point. Like, not the pressure that something bad was going to happen if I hit him, because I knew that he wasn't going to charge me. You know, I knew that there wasn't going to be some big melee. He just wanted it over with. And I know this because he had a mutual friend with a reliever of ours, Mark Guthrie, at the time. And that friend Clemens told his friend to tell Mark, tell Estes, nothing's going to happen. Let's just get this over with. So I knew going into that game, like all I had to do was hit him and then it would be over with, right? He'd take his base, you know, everybody would be fine. So I had one opportunity to not only hit him, but like not miss him, but also, you know, he knows it's coming too. So like if you've ever stood there from, not many people have, from 60 feet away, and you know you're going to get hit by something, you're probably going to move and get out of the way if you can. Okay, so I reach back and I try to throw it inside. I try to hit him like right in the hip or something. That was my focal point. I'm not going to hit him in the head. I mean, I'm never going to do that. I'm not going to try to end someone's career. So I'm going to try to hit him, get it over with. Well, I yanked it a little too much, and he just moves forward a little bit, and it goes right behind him. And at that point, the umpires have to warn both teams because it went behind him. So everybody's mad, you know, because, you know, they don't know if I'm going to keep trying to hit him, or they don't really know. But I know Valentine was upset because I saw a video of him reacting in the dugout, blah, 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 whatever. So, you know, I'm like, fine. If I get the sign again, I'll try to hit him again. And if I hit him, I'll probably get tossed, but whatever. Well, I didn't get the sign in that at bat to hit him again. So I pitched to him. And I didn't get the sign again the rest of the game. He came up again later on. And, you know, so I figured it was over. You know, I hit a home run off of him. I think my first or second at bat. We win 7-0. I threw one of the best games of the year. And for myself, I threw 7 shutout, and I think I punched out 11 or 12 that day. It was just, I was on cloud 9.
Well, I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
What was more satisfying, going 7, striking out 11 or 12, or hitting a home run off Clemens that game in the 5th inning?
It's not even close. It's hitting a home run. I mean, it's not even close. You know, because
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool to pitch.
That's awesome.
Scoreless against the Yankees, but you know, I had pitched well before. You know, that wasn't the first time I had a good game. You know, I had a better game. You know, the game we talked about at home against the Expos, the 18-0 game. But the fact that I'm supposed to hit Clemens, and then I actually do hit Clemens, but but it happened to be, I actually hit the ball out of the ballpark. And it's the only time he'd ever done that. And the only time he did that in his whole career was when he gave up a hit to a pitcher. And so I kind of felt like, it was actually, I think that he was affected more by that than he would have been had I hit him with the pitch. Because, his ego is pretty big. And I think it hurt his ego more than if I had hit him, it would have actually hurt him physically. I think it hurt him more mentally. So that was great. Piazza actually hit a home run off of him as well. Piazza hit a home run off of him that game as well. So it was
Awesome.
It was a double whammy.
My internet went down for a minute. I don't know what happened. I was freezing. I don't know.
I think you heard most of it. I saw you.
Okay.
I saw you get cut out about 5 seconds ago. So
okay. Well, yeah. The last part I heard was the most satisfying was the home run. Not even close. So
not even yeah, because I had pitched well before, but just the fact that it was really just just kind of how it just kind of was meant to be. It felt like, I hit a home run off of him. So did Piazza that day. The whole reason why he hit Piazza in the first place is because Piazza hit homers off of him.
Right.
So obviously that bothered him a lot. So I think that it probably affected him more mentally than had I hit him would have hurt him physically. So, I think justice was served in that situation. And, we had a team party after that game with the Yankees, believe it or not, Mets Yankees party in Manhattan. And, I ran into Jason Giambi at that party, and Jason, who I knew when he played for the A's, I was on the Giants. And he said, you know what, even if you would have hit Roger, like the fans still wouldn't have been okay with it because they wanted him to be hit in the head, knocked out, carried off on a stretcher, blood coming out of his ears. That's how much hate the Mets fans had for Clemens because of what he did to Piazza and just the whole Yankee-Mets rivalry and all that. So he said, what you did affected Clemens more than you hitting him would have. So yeah. I felt a lot better about things at that point than I did after the game because, the media was pretty critical about, me not hitting him.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story though. Got a lot of people in the chat, loving the stories that you were sharing here. Cliff again says you give off Noah Lowry vibes. Be a cool guy to grab a pint and talk some baseball.
Yeah, I don't know Noah that well. I've actually met him a couple times, but never had the opportunity to really hang with him because he was after me with the Giants. But yeah, he's a Bay Area guy, pretty cool guy. So yeah, I think Cliff's right on point. I think Noah and I would get along well.
Yeah. Now I want to get into some of the current situation with the Giants. We've talked a lot about your career, your playing career, what it was like. And I know we're time's limited, so I want to get into what's happening today with the Giants. You cover them on NBC Sports Bay Area. You've covered this team for many years now. And, I won't ask you too many tough questions, but my show, my channel, my guys are kind of known for, I've been pretty hard on Farhan. I am a longtime Giants fan, Shawn, since I grew up in the Bay, born in 1968, the first year I watched baseball, I watched Bobby Bonds hit a grand slam in his first game against the Dodgers, and I was hooked, Yeah. Of course, it didn't help it helped to have two older brothers who were, Giants fans. And so we watched every game that was on. Back then it was 18 to 20 games a year is all we got.
Yeah.
But watching this team grow up on it and then finally get to the World Series in 89, I'm like 28-year-old man crying because the Giants finally get to the World Series. Now, and then I just had Ned Colletti on the show quite a bit. He's a good friend of the show. And I know he was the assistant GM when you were there for your career. You're basically the whole time you were with the Giants, except for the first couple of years. I guess he came in '96 season, at the end of '96 with Brian.
With Sabian, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was sharing this on my show last night. The Giants won 8 straight seasons, had winning seasons, 97 to 04. And under today's 3 wild card format, they would have made the playoffs 8 straight years. And then they had the 4-year lag from 05 to 08. Those were 4 losing seasons. And then 09, they started winning again. And of course, the rest is history, 10, 12, 14, but only 5 losing seasons in Sabian's roughly 20 years at the helm, from 97 to 16. Only 05 through 08 and 2013 did they have a losing season. They didn't make the playoffs every year because they didn't have all these teams making the playoffs. But now we're going on year 6, and the Giants are most likely probably going to miss the playoffs again this year. Atlanta won again tonight, and the Giants need Atlanta to lose 7 more games than – the Giants basically have to go like 21-9, and Atlanta go 500 for them to win.
They're in essence 7 games out if you look at
exactly.
it.
They're about 7. Exactly. It's not the 5 or 5.5 after night. It's like 7.
Yeah.
So I don't see it happening. If they miss the playoffs again, and if they fail to even have a winning season, that's 1 out of 6 seasons for Farhan. And I know you work for the club, and you got to be careful. But what is the vibe around the team when there's just this? It's just not what we're used to in San Francisco. In 1958, the Giants came to San Francisco and had 14 straight winning seasons all the way through 1971. It was the 70s and parts of the 80s, and they've been a winning franchise. In fact, they're the all-time winningest franchise of any team in Major League Baseball. And yet now we're going on if you count 17, 18, 19, 20, only 1 winning season since 2016.
Yeah.
And this isn't what we're used to. So what's the feeling? What's the level of panic, or is there a level of frustration, a level of discontentment amongst the media, amongst the fans, or the organization itself? What can you share?
Oh, I would say that you're right on. There is a feeling of frustration and discontentment. Not just the media, not just the fans, but I'm sure, some people even in the front office that have been there for a long time, employees of the Giant organization that have been there for a long time. The conversations a lot of times with people that have been there for a long time since I played there, there's a lot of people that are still there in all different arenas of the Giant organization. And to a person, they just say it's different. Things are different. It's just not the same. And you could say that with a lot of companies where you have a regime that's in place for a long time, and you're used to being really successful as a company, and then all of a sudden you bring someone else in, and the vibe changes. People change, the mentality changes, and you obviously said, Sabian, he had a different way of doing things. He took a lot of risk in his career as a GM, and he improved his team every year. And, the one constant that, you mentioned those teams that were successful under Sabian, the one constant was we had the best player in baseball on our team. That helps. So, are you there, Dan? I think we lost you. Danny there?
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if it's me freezing or you. I'm not sure what's happening because
you're freezing on my end. I don't think it's me because I got pretty good service here. But
yeah, I do too. Gosh, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was just saying that, there is some frustration amongst, and I think you heard me say that, people in the organization all say that it's kind of different. Things are just different. And nobody says They just say it's not the same, and I take that as what it used to be. Everybody, was happy and content and happy with, people that, that were in charge. So, but that's life sometimes, though. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. That's the way companies work, businesses work. Sometimes it's cyclical. So, I don't know. It's hard for me because I think the proof's in the pudding, right? I mean, you don't go to the playoffs for 5 out of 6 years. What's up? Something's got to change. So, I think the big thing with Farhan is that he had a way of doing things with the A's, and then he had a way of doing things when he was with the Dodgers. The difference with the Dodgers is, it was all about player development, but then fill in the holes with spending money, and they never had a problem landing the big free agent or making a big trade because they had the pieces in the minor leagues to trade. And it was two different ways to go about it between the A's and the Dodgers, because the A's didn't have any money to spend and they had to develop, and he did a pretty good job of doing that with them. But then you go to the Dodgers and you have some deep pockets, but you also have a really good minor league system. They still do. That hasn't changed. It's because Farhan's not there, right? So there's some other people over there that are pretty smart as well. Farhan's a very, very smart guy, but I think he came in right away and he sold the ownership on, hey, I'm gonna, we don't have to have the top 5 payroll in the major leagues to win. Like I can win with, I can save some money, and still go out and put a competitive team on the field. Well, they kind of did in 2020 in the shortened season. They came down the last series of the year. 2021, they catch lightning in a bottle, win 107. So Farhan's thinking like, I got the magic touch. I got the, whatever it is, it worked. And then it didn't work, and it hasn't worked for the last going on 3 years now. So, I think a lot of it, like I said, Barry Bonds is at the centerpiece, and things fall into place when you have a superstar like that, right? You have other, obviously you're winning. Other players want to come play there. You can rely on someone like that, like a Shohei Ohtani or an Aaron Judge, a Bryce Harper. Like those are the guys you can build around. Those are the guys that create that winning culture.
Right.
And he hasn't been able to land that player. And he's not for lack of trying. And ever since, Buster and Buster retired, that was his guy. And it hasn't been the same. There's just in the platoon stuff kind of stopped working, and the opener and all that stuff that was progressive thinking, a little bit more progressive and analytical way of thinking, just hasn't worked. So I don't know what has to be done. I'm not real bullish on this team making the playoffs. I kind of feel like that they are what they are, and they've been a 500 team.
Right. The biggest winning streak is 4 all year. They haven't even been able to put 5 together.
Yeah. So they're 500 team. And so that's not going to get it done. And so if they don't make the playoffs again, I don't really know how long the leash is. So I'm obviously frustrated, and the brand of baseball that you see right now isn't that fun to watch.
No, exactly. And I was watching Saturday's game, and I saw them steal 4 bases, double steal, couple of bunts. I was like, where's this been all year?
Yeah. Well, I was with Wotus on the pre and post game, and Wotus is the longest tenured Giant coach ever. He still is in uniform sometimes. He's seen everything.
Right.
And he was so giddy about that game that's what I wanted to talk about. The post game show is the stolen bases, the sack bunt, the attempt of a bunt, the sack fly.
Right.
Putting the pressure on the defense, because that's the way you're going to have to win with this club, because the home runs are too inconsistent. They don't hit them at home. They seem to hit home runs on the road, but they can't get hits with runners in scoring position. They strand a lot of runners at third base with less than 2 outs. Not a lot of great situational hitting happening. Not a lot of put the ball in play. They struck out 18 times the other night, and then they turned around and struck out 5 the next night. So it's like don't know what you're going to get. But when they struck out 5 times, that was the game where they played some small ball. They put the ball in play.
It was amazing.
And what happened? They won a game.
Yeah, and
gosh.
It's amazing because we talked about this Saturday night on the show. We do the post game every game, and we were talking about when you bunt and you make the defense, good things happen. You put the pressure on the defense, and then we saw the Little League World Series. I don't know if you saw the end of that.
We played it on the post game show. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Poor pitcher.
I made a comment because I was talking to Lotus, and I said, well, even if they don't make that error and throw the ball into right field and Florida wins, you got a runner at third with less than 2 outs. And I said, they're not the Giants. They probably would have got the runner in.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm sure some people didn't appreciate that, and they had been watching the post.
Yeah, well, we love
a little jab, but it's probably true.
It's good to hear it though. But it's funny because I played second base on my Little League All-Star team, and I felt sorry for the second baseman because he just botched it. He should have been on first. There was no reason to go. He went to second, and there was no reason. The lead runner was on second. There was no way.
Yeah.
And
at 12 years old or 13, some of them, I don't think there can be any more pressure on you at any time in your life up to that point. In an extra inning game with a runner on first and a tie game, that's a lot of pressure, man. I felt for that kid.
I did too. I felt for the pitcher, everybody. But I said on the show afterwards, I thought, it's Little League. That's the time the coach should come out, timeout. All right, gonna bunt here. You cover, tell everybody what's gonna happen and what they need to do, because you got to remind they're 12 years old.
Well, every once in a while you'll see it in the big leagues too. I mean, the manager will come out and in a big moment in the game, where they're expecting something to happen, and he'll direct the offense at the defense, right? And you just need reminders sometimes, so the moment doesn't overwhelm you. You can have pre-pitch preparation, and yes, obviously that probably should have been a conversation they had.
It's funny you say the coaches come out. There was a thing I saw on Twitter the other day, baseball history nut. Braves, Leo Mazzoni, the pitching coach, came out to Bobby Cox, sent him out to tell Maddox he wanted him to walk. Who was coming up? I'm trying to remember who it was. But anyway, whoever it was, he said he wanted him walked, and Maddox said, no.
Yeah.
I want 2 pitches, and 2 pitches I'll have him pop out the third. And Bobby Cox is going nuts in the dugout, and second pitch popped him out to third.
Third base. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That sounds like Doggy, man. He's. I don't know if you've watched any of those Barry Bonds.
Yes, where they're looking at their iPads and
the at bats. That's pretty cool.
That is great.
He was this, by far the smartest pitcher I ever played with.
Wow. Now, there's a lot of questions that guys are asking in the chat. I don't know if I'll be able to get to all of them in our time, but who was the toughest hitter you ever faced?
Well, there was a bunch of them. There was some pesky hitters, like they would just always seem to get hits. And then there was guys that would do some damage. And I think I lost my edge with one of these guys pretty early in my career. And one of them was Matt Williams. And I just take a look at Matt Williams' numbers versus man. And I worked with him on the pre and post game show one year. And the running joke with one of the hosts always used to like to, stick it to me whenever he could, and fun. But he'd always point out Matty Williams' numbers against me, and how many home runs he hit, and that I built his second home in Flagstaff or whatever. But Matt Williams, I gave up the most home runs to him in my, out of any hitter I faced. And Matt Williams was a tough one. Jeff Kent, actually, when I faced him, I played with them for 6 years, but then I faced him for another 6. He had my number too. I think there was just a little bit of an edge that you lose, not only when you know somebody or you play with somebody, but But Matty was a guy that grew up in Carson City, and I grew up in Minden, Nevada. So Douglas and Carson were rivals in high school. But first and foremost, there was not many guys that came out of Northern Nevada that made the big leagues and that had success. So he was before me by a few years. So he was a guy, and I liked the Giants, and obviously, he played for the Giants for a long time that I really looked up to because I was like, hey, it's a local boy done good, right? It's like
Right.
Carson Crusher is now the big Marine in the big leagues, right? Whatever they used to call him.
Right.
And so like I just had like major respect for Matty. So and then I got called up to the big leagues, and he was my third baseman. So I was like, this is too good to be true. So I really did feel like that I lost an edge pitching against him, just because like it was hard to have like that. You kind of have to have this hatred toward the hitter you're facing. You have to have this like, I'm not afraid to go inside and drill you if I have to mentality. There has to be like that ultimate like competitive battle, and you almost wanted to think that guy, that you were facing, that he had a personal vendetta against you, and that it's just that you had to build up mentally. You had to get to that point, and I just never could with Matty. So it was tough.
Wow. Now, do you have any aspirations to get into coaching or front office work in baseball? Would that be if that opportunity arose, would that be something you'd look at?
No, I'm pretty with front office stuff.
Yeah, because somebody said right here, Shawn Estes for president of baseball ops.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think I'm qualified. That's definitely above my pay grade, man. I'm pretty content with what I'm doing right now. I think coaching wise, that takes a lot of time away from family. It's just you're there a lot. You're there more than the players are, and it's not just a 6-month job. It's 7.5 with spring training, and then you're doing stuff in the winter. And I have a 9 and a 7-year-old, so I don't think I could do that. Not that I would enjoy it. I think I would enjoy it. I just don't have the time for that.
Right.
And then front office is a whole other animal. That's a 365 job.
Oh yeah.
So
that's
I kind of like being able to work when I want, doing the broadcast stuff, and then I get to have that good balance with the family.
Yeah. I know I speak for a lot of people here listening right now. I loved having you, listening to you on the road games when.
Well, hopefully I'll get an opportunity to do that again. I'm not doing it this year, but hopefully that opportunity will arise again in the future. Yeah.
No, that's great. Now, some other questions that people were asking. You played with Barry and Jeff Kent, and everybody saw the dugout squabbles at times with Barry and Jeff, and you guys had some great personalities, some real great players on those teams. What was it like playing with Barry? What was it like in that clubhouse? Was there a lot of tension between those two, or was it just fabricated?
No, it's fabricated because, everybody had obviously one goal, and that's to go win. And you had two different personalities that left each other alone. I mean, they weren't friends. They weren't best of friends. They didn't hang out after the games or on the road, or, it wasn't like that they didn't say hi to each other in the clubhouse. It wasn't always that. There wasn't always that, but it was, if something came up and someone didn't disagree with the other one, then there would be, then there would be a fight, but it didn't happen that often. Right.
Yeah.
The ones that you saw were the only times that they happened. So, behind the scenes, that never happened. I think that gets blown out of proportion, but, Dusty always used to tell us when he was with the Dodgers that some of the best teams he played on, the guys didn't get along at all.
Yeah.
But they went out on the field and they competed. And they won.
I think the 70s team, the Oakland A's, that won 3 World Series championships in a row, used to have fights. They were known to fight in the clubhouse.
Yeah, the guys are nice now.
Nice. Well, here's a question for you. You played with Barry. You watched the game today. To me, Barry's the best player I've ever seen in my lifetime. I saw Willie Mays, but toward the end. But Barry could do it all. He could run, hit, steal, But when you watch Shohei versus Bonds, who do you think? Forget the steroid, whatever, all that. Just what they did on the field. Who do you think will go down as having the better career?
Oh, Barry. No one's going to touch Barry's numbers.
I don't think so either.
No, I mean, Shohei's doing some pretty crazy things, as is Aaron Judge, but nobody will touch. Nobody. I mean, there's respect there with those players. You can tell. Obviously, you can't make mistakes, but Barry would. I mean, those guys will never walk as much as Barry did. There's just not as much fear,
right?
And because you throw the ball over the plate, Barry was going to hit it out at one point in his career. That's how good he was. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
nobody's ever going to be that good and be that intimidating and be that big of a force in the lineup ever.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a player that, as I saw, that was ever just that intimidating. You didn't want to miss his at bats. And speaking of that, we know the Giants missed out on Shohei. I never expected him to have a shot at him this past offseason.
No one did. Yeah.
But you got one big free agent coming this year, and that's Juan Soto. My thing is with Juan Soto, I think the only way you can get a Juan Soto is if you're drastically higher than the rest of the market.
It's the only way.
I mean, I'm talking probably $100 million more
Yep.
than what the next closest team is willing to pay.
Only chance.
Chance. If they were able to do that, that changes the course of the franchise immediately, because I love Matt Chapman's game. I love his defense. I love his base running. I love the fact that he plays every day. He's a leader. I have been a little bit critical of his hitting in clutch situations. And he's never been a big, RBI guy. The most he's ever had is 91. But right now, Matt Chapman is expected to carry this team, as the leader, as the guy. If you surround him with Soto and a Vladdy Guerrero, now Matt Chapman becomes very, very valuable, in my opinion, because he's not expected to carry the club.
Mm-hmm.
You make a trade for Vladdy Guerrero at first base. You sign Juan Soto. You maybe go get a Ha-Seong Kim, and now you've got Ramos and Jung-Hoo Lee coming back, and Tyler Fitzgerald and Chapman and all. Now you're talking a team. I would love to see that happen, but I'm not going to count on it. I will be shocked if they get Soto. I think he lands in one of the New York teams is my best guess.
Yeah.
But what's the mindset? Is there any, like, in the organization that says, we've missed out on Judge, we've missed out on Ohtani, we missed out on Harper. Are they going to learn from any of that and say, we can't be near, we can't be like, oh, we matched for Ohtani.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting these guys if you don't match. You've got to overpay. Yeah. That's your only shot.
I mean, it obviously comes down to ownership and what they're willing to do. I mean, I don't have any answers to that because I don't really know what they're willing to spend.
Yeah,
it's obviously that sounds great. I would love to see that too.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think that's kind of a unrealistic expectation. Unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, Ha-Seong Kim's not, but this kid Sasaki, the pitcher, I don't think that's unrealistic.
Oh, the one that's coming out of Japan, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Soto's unrealistic. I mean, trading for Vladdy, that's a different story,
Yeah.
Pete Alonso. I mean, I don't know. They got to make it. They got to do something. They got to make a splash. They got to get a middle of the lineup guy. You have to.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way that they end up getting back on the map.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you foresee any young guys? I mean, we're hearing a lot about Bryce Eldridge coming up, and
a couple years away.
I think so. A couple years.
Very talented. Yeah. They're still trying to find a position for him. Really, I mean, he's in the outfield now. He's at first base now.
Yeah.
He's not an outfielder, and he's learning first base. So that's good. They have to find. They don't want him to be up here as a DH. You want him to be at play position, but he's as far as hit wise, he's a big leaguer.
Yeah.
And he will
Well,
be in a couple years.
a couple more questions before we let you go. I know you got, appreciate you coming on with us. What do you think? I have proposed that they play Marco. They get him in the off season. I would have had him down here this year, learning first base. He's athletic enough to, if he can play short, you should be able to learn first base because, I mean, shortstop's obviously one of the most athletic positions on the field, but that's probably Fitzgerald's job going forward.
Yeah.
And
Marco's not a shortstop. He's not really, he's not a shortstop. He won't ever be. I think if anything, he'll be a third baseman. I like the first base idea. I do. So that's what I would do. But you don't want your young guy being a DH. I mean, a DH is something you're gonna evolve into. So, and can he hit enough? That's the thing. I mean, I know he's got the hit tool, but he hasn't done a whole lot as far as power wise. In the minor leagues even.
Right.
So you see these guys that are coming up from the minor leagues are power hitters. They're hitting 30 down there. You know what I mean? They're hitting 30. They're doing it. They're showing power in the minor leagues. He just hasn't done it in the minor leagues. So I don't know. All of a sudden he gets to the big leagues if he's going to turn into a 25, 30 home run guy. I just don't see that either. So, and that's what you have to be as a first baseman.
Yeah.
So,
it's
I don't
interesting.
know. Marco's a tough one. I don't think that people are inside the inside people aren't as bullish on Marco as I think the fans are, because he's been built up. The Giants haven't had many guys to really hang their hat on in the minor league system, and he was one of those guys.
Right. Well, he's reached as high as 9 on some of the top 100 lists. There's like 4 or 5 out there.
Yeah. He's got some talent. I mean, he's got some skills, obviously offensively, but you got to find a position for him, and it's got to translate to the big leagues. But you got to get the opportunities. I get that. Get that, but I think they just really like Fitzgerald's athleticism. Marco's not a fast guy either. I mean, he's not a fast guy. He's not a really athletic player and not a great base runner. So, I think that they're higher on Fitzgerald because of what he brings to the table.
Right. Yeah, I loved. I was in April when the season started. I says, I loved Fitzgerald's game. I said, at that time, they had Nick Ahmed at short. I was like, get Fitzgerald in the lineup like the Dodgers used to use Chris Taylor in his prime. Left field, center field, shortstop, second base, third base. Move him around because this kid needs to play, and it's great to see him finally settle in. And the guy's he's closing in on 2020.
Yeah, he's been awesome. He's been a revelation. I mean, him and Elliott, they've done. That's exciting when you have 2 young guys like that. They're an all-star and a potential rookie of the year.
I interviewed Elliott not this spring, but last spring, and in the clubhouse, I asked him. I said, "What are your goals?" This is the 23 season. He said 2020. He wanted to be a 2020 guy. I'd love to see him take off more on the bases. He's only got 3 or 4 steals.
Yeah.
And he really hasn't.
Because he's not slow. He's
the
sprint speed. I think Fitzgerald's 1, McRae's 2. I think Elliott's right behind him.
Right.
Him and Chapman are right there.
Yeah. I'd love to see him and start employing that. Before I let you go here, and we'll end with this. Mark Graves, one of our paid members and moderators in the chat, says, does Harrison need to pitch inside with his fastball to be more effective?
I mean, I think anybody that, has the fastball that he has and throws it as much as he does, I think that they need to command the fastball to all 4 quadrants. And I mean, he's got the fastball up. That's where he lives. And at times he can command it away. But, we've seen Blake Snell, and, Blake's got a good fastball, but man, he knows how to pitch inside. And it's so effective because it gets guys off that curveball and that slider, because they have to, as a hitter, if you're conscious of the fastball in, it speeds you up. Your front side, you have to kind of gear up for that fastball in, and then it makes your breaking ball more effective, and then you can actually start to get guys out of the way as well. So I definitely I agree with that. I do think he needs to command his fastball on his glove side a little bit better. And I think that's probably the next step for him, is being able to throw that ball inside when he wants to, being able to elevate when he needs to, and then being able to go down and away. I mean, he needs to just be able to command his fastball as much as he throws it. And I think that'll help him with the breaking ball as well. I think that'll make the breaking ball play a lot better. And he's got a good changeup, the okay changeup, but I think that'd be a good pitch for him too. But you got to get guys conscious of in before those pitches become successful.
Yeah, I know he's not afraid to throw inside. I've seen him do it.
No, he's just got to be able to do it. You know, he's still learning how to command. He's still learning how to where his release point is from every game. You know, it's he's got that high spin rate. He's got that really good fastball. Where he's learned how to throw at the top part of the zone. He's got that dialed in. But that fastball in, running in on guys, because from his arm angle, that could be a big weapon, and it could eat some guys up inside. And if you could throw a cutter off of that pitch, even better. I think that might be the next pitch that he probably incorporates in his arsenal, as a cut fastball that he can bore in on the hands of righties.
Right. Yeah, that would be great. Kind of like Blake Snell's. Blake Snell, this run that he's had prior to Saturday's game, I've been watching baseball, I said, for 56 years. It reminded me of Sandy Koufax.
Yeah.
The guy was absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
He was unhittable. I think
his 8 starts he had prior to the other day was better than any 8 starts he had with the Padres last year when he won the Cy Young.
Yeah. And, you know, I thought the key to him, you know, I made the comment a couple months ago when he was struggling. I said, he's got to just start attacking the zone and let his stuff play, because he can't be going only 5 innings. He needs to, you know, and then no one expected him to go. I didn't expect him to go even 8. He goes 9 and throws that no-hitter. I was so happy for him. That was awesome to watch. And then the 15 strikeouts, and then the 1-0 game they lost to Braves and Chris Sale. That was, I mean, just unbelievable pitching. So it's a shame that
he's been fun to watch. I just don't think he's going to be back either, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But well, guys, that's enough time we have for Shawn. I think he went a little longer than we had him planned for. So, but Shawn, it's been great having you here. The people have been asking for you, and it's great to have you on. I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge. You're a great broadcaster. You're a great Giants pitcher, and just a real treat to have you join NorCal Sports Network. Thank you so much for this.
It's my pleasure, Dan. Yeah, you have a great audience and great questions today. So
yeah, they're asking for you to come back. Maybe when the season ends, we can do a recap and have you
we
back.
Can get into what needs to happen.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Get this team back in this winning ways. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, closing music out of there. So thanks to our guest, Shawn Estes. We will be back tomorrow morning with the morning show. Morning show at 10:30. It's called Morning Game Plan, where we cover what's going on. Just a short show, Giants, 49ers, Warriors, what's happening on the national sports scene. If you guys haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate you being part of NorCal Sports Network. And everybody have a great night. Thanks again, Shawn.
See you, Dan.
All right.